hero.
Good evening, everybody. Good to have you here for Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Same order it's always been. And it's good to have you here. It is the 23rd. We've got just about one more week left in July. July and January always seem to be the months that never end for me. 31 days. One is extremely hot usually. The other one's extremely cold. So just everything kind of lasts a little bit longer. But this one's been going quicker. And it's been very productive. I think that's why. Thinking so much about everything. And even though you only see so much, I promise you there's a lot going on. And in fact, as I look beyond the studio window over here into the common space out there, boy, there's a lot of crap that I got to actually put back into the music room tonight. Mike will be here. I stayed here a little bit late last night to reassemble the electronic drums corner and the broadcast corner of the music room last night, just so there wasn't so much to do with the wiring and everything else. So there'll be a little bit more done there. I'll get that all done. The acoustic set will be done. The cameras will be in place. And then we start thinking about arranging of art on the walls and, of course, lighting. What are we going to do? I've got some good ideas, and hopefully that will be all in place now for what is going to be a wonderfully hosted event in September. But beyond that, it's going to be a place where we're going to serve up some live music entertainment. Even if it's just me sitting on the drums, that'll be starting soon with a whole litany of bonus content that's going to be available on pilled.net starting in August. So that's going to be a lot of fun right there as the centerpiece on Quite Frankly.tv. Love the boys at the whole team at pilled.net. Okay, well, what do we got tonight? Tonight we have a great guest coming on. It's the first time we're speaking to Barbie Rivera. And she's got a pretty interesting story that I think a lot of people can relate to. And it's very timely right now as the entire landscape is shifting and remaking itself, especially when it comes to education and how people are going off the beaten path and rediscovering what education can be outside of what has just been knee-jerk prescribed by the state for so long. And that's what we have tonight. A little bit more about Big Pharma's presence inside of the American classroom. And at least one woman's journey and fight to separate herself and her family from it all, which I think should be a really nice conversation for a lot of people in the audience to hear, especially me. I'm kind of on that path, so be nice. But after Barbie departs in the first half, we're going to open it up in the second half to a couple of things that were going on today, including all of the news out of Washington, D.C. by way of Tulsi Gabbard, all of the Barack Obama administration news. Just essentially we're revisiting the Russia op, and what we've known for so long is starting to get a little bit more, again, the mortar, the brick. We're actually seeing things released that we had long time. So again, is it for us? Is it for newbies? Is it to become predicate for what's going to be a real, I don't know, some sort of a reckoning, an indictment? It would be a real shame, and you'll see we'll read through it a little bit. And I'll take your call, see what you guys think. There's other things we can talk about there too. I saw stuff coming out of RFK's office about organ harvesting. If we have some time, maybe we can dip into that, but I took it out of the title just in case it gets a little bit too cluttered. I don't want to lose out on some really good conversation on organ harvesting because there's a lot there. There's a lot there. And I think I might just want to take calls on that one night. That would be fun. And creepy. What else? Okay, well, you know what? One more week before August, so I guess I'll say this. We are reading The Body by Stephen King. It's a novella. You don't even have to buy the book. The PDF is all over the place. It's a short read. It's a very good read. And it is also the basis for a beloved tradition here on Quite Frankly in the month of August. That is the deer scene. Okay, and so we are going to be reading that for book club in August. All of you monthly subscribers who are eligible to join us for the book club sessions, please do so. Please do so. It is it's important. It's only 5 books a year. Start reading. And after that, we're going to watch Stand By Me together. So it'll be a duel. First time we've done this, even though we could have done it with other things like Godfather last year. Maybe we'll watch Godfather for film club in November. It's kind of November-y, Christmassy kind of a book anyway, a kind of a story anyway. Always feels a lot more, those Christmas scenes in Godfather are always the things that really, yeah, it's pretty hot and sweaty out there in Sicily, but not in New York. That's what we'll do. Here's something else for you. A little bit of moving and shaking in the new media sphere. Well, here's some shaking. French President Macron is suing Candace Owens over claim that France's first lady was born male. Listen, I was the first one. I don't take credit for a lot. I'll take credit for this. I was the first one to make E.T. with the wig jokes. But that's just because of how tired and lifeless Macron's wife's hair looks. I made the E.T. jokes. That is now just all over the place. But I have been, I don't know. I did not see this as a, to everybody, I can't, there's, every woman is a man to some people on the internet. You know, about 10 years ago, I think a lot more people were respectful of the fact that women came in all shapes and sizes, and some of them were a little bit more butch than others. But now it's just everybody, every woman you see on the internet is a man, and these, and it's, I never thought this, okay? Not with her. I never thought that. Now, again, here's the issue. They're suing, but shouldn't part of the suit be proving that that the first lady is a woman? Is there not burden of proof on both sides? You know, I always thought that this relationship was most political relationships, especially on the big stage out there, and he's a Goldman Sachs guy, and you know, there's something to be said about older woman, younger man, arranged marriages of convenience, political versus community, whatever. So I don't know. These marriages are never as the eye sees them, but I never questioned their sex. But you think that there should be a little bit more burden of proof, no? That was like, what's she going to do? Like in the courtroom, she's going to spread eagle for everybody. And like, you can't, it's just one of those things you start challenging somebody's, it's almost like, you know, say, oh, well, good. Yeah, but bring us to court, because then it's, what do we always say? Discovery. Well, can Candace Owens in any way, shape, or form charge that she should be able to inspect Macron's wife? I don't know. That's just, I guess that's news for another day. Here's something else. Multiple children have been rescued from a secret underground bunker in Alabama, where they were held and abused for over a year. Authorities say the children aged 3 to 10 were drugged, assaulted, and trafficked by a group of men who sold them to clients for exploitation. The bunker was part of a hidden operation built to keep them completely isolated from the outside world. This is local breaking news down there. Hold on, give me a second. Give me a second.
It's an underground storm shelter near the home of William Chase McElroy, one of the men charged with raping and sodomizing the children, as well as kidnapping and human trafficking.
Inside the storm shelter, there were chairs and beds and things of that nature.
You don't need to know more. That's just what it is. First thing I thought when this was sent to me was, geez, like this True Detective season 1. But you talk about local news, man. Awful. I'm glad that they've been rescued, and hopefully their minds can be put back together and they can lead some sort of a fruitful and happy life. And I hope that these guys are actually torn limb from limb, slowly, torn limb from limb. I hate praying for stuff like that. It's unbecoming and it's not very Christian. But maybe I'm not praying. I don't think I'm praying for it. I'm just hoping for it. Fucking animals. And yeah, well, here's something else. One last thing. Maybe I'll save this for afterwards, because it's really talking about local news. This is something that should really, fuck it, I'll say it right now. Francis Ford Coppola is about, I don't know, not too far away from where I'm sitting right now. Francis Ford Coppola, just talking about Godfather just a few minutes ago, is screening Megapolis in the Capitol Theater. Now, for those of you who have not put two and two together, I mean, he's over there screening. He's screening this movie that he put $140 million of his own money into. And he's actually sitting around. He's going to be there for a live Q&A with people. That is right in the venue that we are going to be having the Jamboree at. Now, we're not going to have the big theater. I wish we could have a little bit of a tour there or something like that. I don't. But we are going to be in the box office area, the courtyard, and of course the Garcia's area. But it's all really meshed together. It's a historic building. And this screening is happening tonight, Wednesday, the 23rd, at the Capitol Theater. I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. Just learned about that last night. So I am a stone's throw away from a very famous director whose work I really love. And he's going to be So many of you guys are going to be in a nice historic landmark, and there'll be a little bit of taking that energy in too. It opened up in the 20s. A little bit of vaudeville, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You know. Anyway, let's get this one kicked off. We have Barbie Rivera joining us in just a moment. Be right back.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock it!
Yeah. Ding, 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 ding. Hey, buddies. How are you guys feeling? Big shout out to Wake and Bake Beats. They made this like 10 years ago at this point. I wonder if DC and Einstein are still making music together, but I got to interview them. They were cool guys, and they just stopped uploading stuff. But I love their stuff. Old studio. Reminds me of the old studio, but still holds up for me. All right, well, welcome to the show, one and all. And I would like to take a little bit of time now to read to you, set the stage a little bit for our guest this evening. Now, we're talking to Barbie Rivera, and in 1991, a teacher labeled Barbie's 6-year-old son mentally handicapped. Just went for the gold with that one. It wasn't, hey, a little bit of a attention, attention problem, can't sit still. No, mentally handicapped. Recommended lifelong medication. Barbie refused to accept this, and seeing her bright bilingual son lose his spark, took action. By 1991, she began homeschooling, eventually founding HELP, that's HELP, Miami, an accredited K through 12 private school. Featured in media like the Epic Times, Barbie has spent 34 years exposing educational suppression. Her book, Enough is Enough, reveals the alarming realities of psych-driven school systems and offers a bold solution. Praised as a conversational yet powerful, it is igniting a call to action for parents and educators to demand meaningful change. Barbie, welcome to Quite Frankly. It's wonderful to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Well, 34 years you've been at it here.
Yep.
And I like to just get a little bit more about your personal story, because it's one thing to have a teacher tell a parent that their child is not paying attention or is a little disruptive in class. Lord knows that was all teachers used to tell my parents when it was progress report night. But it's another thing altogether to be told your child that's a verbatim quote, mentally handicapped.
That's a verbatim quote. Yeah, and the thing with Damon is my son never threw a fit at a grocery store. If it was, Damon, it's time to clean up your room. Okay, Mom. Damon, it's time to go to bed. Okay, Mom. I read to him every night. He did all of the things that boys do, make tents out of the dining room table with the sheet. He was super easy to get along with, and he was very intelligent. He liked to draw. He could do Legos. He could play well with others, or he could play by himself. So when a teacher comes and tells me he's mentally handicapped, that's a problem, because if he is targeted, then we really have no hope as a society. I would understand if he really was special needs, he's my responsibility, but he wasn't. He wasn't disruptive. He couldn't focus. It wasn't any of that.
So then what do they see? Like, again, I know this is a long time ago, but again, this is the foundation of your story and the work that you've done since then. So you just described your experience with somebody who knows the child better than anybody. What did they see that led them to such a severe diagnosis?
Well, what they saw was something ridiculous. He confused. All right. So the communication came on the second Friday of school. So that's 10 days in, right? 10 days in. And as well, he confuses the B and the D. And I'm like, yeah, they look alike. And so, and the G and the P, I'm like, again, they look alike. He does not confuse a table with a car. Like, he's 6 and they look alike. And then I made a joke because the teacher was really pushing this. She said that he also confused the 6 and the 9. And I'm like, well, I'll take my son off of all check writing responsibilities with the family, because clearly, I'm like, what are we doing? He's 6.
You know what's crazy? Barbie, as you're talking about this and knowing, again, when this occurred and how it planted the seed for your work that came forward, the state of education right now and how poorly children are doing, I have to imagine that there is an ungodly amount of American youth who are much older than 6 years old and still mix up all those letters and numbers, to be honest.
Yes. Well, and that's the shame. I mean, this whole thing just, it's like once you see something, you can't unsee it. So Damon stayed in school for 1 year. I was very pregnant with my 4th, and I didn't think I could do it. I've never gone to college. I was a decent student in school, bored out of my mind in high school. But I think it was like 1969, 1970, my first grade, my son would have aced it. We had recess, like it was seat work with games, with songs, with seat work, with games, with recess, with song. It was all balanced. You were not expected to sit in a chair for 8 hours a day, nor were we given homework. None of us were given homework. And the progression of skills, the focus was mastery. The teacher wanted you to master it, but it was also like done on a slow gradient so that you had time to master it. And I think that all of first grade was where I learned to print capital letters, lowercase letters, and we spent the majority on short vowel sounds because, as it turns out, short vowel sounds are the majority of the words in the English language. So it was easy. And my son was getting, right off the bat, he had to write book reports and he couldn't read. And you're like, this is insanity. Like, this is absolute insanity. This would be like taking me to Russia, instructing me in Russian, and then expecting me to produce Russian book reports when I don't speak the language.
Yeah. And I think what you're really showing here is that, and how many years ago was this?
1991. I started homeschooling right after the picture on my book, which I'll show right here.
There it is.
That's what Hurricane Andrew did to my yard.
Well, you know what? Your son, I think I'm the same age as your son. I'm 40.
Yes, he'll be 41 next month.
In 1991, I'm in first grade.
Yes.
And you think about this, what we really start seeing around that time is the standardized testing started really becoming crazy. And to the point where a lot of people they have a lot of problems with the standardized testing. And because there's nothing customizable about it. There's nothing really, but it's just, I don't know what you can really get out of this from children. And it's gotten to the point now where we're still so committed to the standardized tests that again, standards are just lowering. So across the board, so perhaps it was too hard and it was making children feel like they were fish out of water, in Russia, taking the test in Russian.
Yeah.
And now it's just getting to the point where you can opt out of so much and nothing really matters. Entrance exams into college is becoming a little bit less of an issue. So now we're at the bottom of the slippery slope where, like I said before, there's probably a lot of kids that nobody writes in cursive anymore. So there's a lot of things that just went out the window with all this. It's a crazy progression of 30 years.
Well, and it started earlier than that. Like, I think that I got a decent early education, but my little brother, who's 2 years younger than me, but when he entered kindergarten, my mother was like, why do they have psychologists talking to David to get him into kindergarten? He's 4. And they talked to him because he was born in November. And there's this huge thing like, you don't want to have a 4-year-old in kindergarten if they're not ready for kindergarten. And they asked my brother, what's the difference between a cat and a mouse? And he said, a cat's a cat and a mouse is a mouse. And he flunked that was their IQ test, and he flunked it. And my mom's like, what the heck was he supposed to say? He's 4.
It's incredible.
Anyway, my mother was furious. And now we come, like, I'm going to tell you, in the last, I would say 15 years, students coming to my school from traditional schools, traditional public school, charter schools, private schools, Catholic schools, Christian schools, et cetera, that charge 2 and 3 times what I do, because I'm like a micro school. None of them are at grade level. And I'm talking years behind. I'm talking high schoolers, factually. I had 3 16-year-olds that I turned away because it's not like I don't know what to do with them, but I can't put them, I'm small. So I have one 10th grade class. I have one 11th grade class, and they're all at a certain level. But these 16-year-olds, I'm like, okay, I gave them an assessment because I looked at them and I could tell, okay, these guys are really low. And these was 3 separate cases from the same school, by the way. 100 take away 81. They couldn't do it. They reached for my calculator. And I'm like, oh, no. You don't get a calculator for this. But you have now special accommodations in school, which special accommodations for me are like hearing aids, handicap wraps. Absolutely. But now special accommodations are calculators given in kindergarten all the way up to high school, and they're allowed to use them on exams. And I'm like, that's so false. Yeah. And then you have another special, and there's several, but another special accommodation that I completely disagree with is what's called the reading pen. Now, it has a huge I don't know, psychobabble name online, but it's essentially a reading pen and it's shaped like a cigar and it has like the head of a owl or a fox. Like they're cute. And the kid can take the pen and go over text and it'll read to them. So now for like my son, if this existed back in his day, he would have been issued a reading pen because he's deficient in decoding the alphabet. And I think it's all, I mean, it's all bullshit.
Oh,
you
no.
know?
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. Nobody's listening to us. You can just say,
Okay. Perfect.
Please. No, you see, that's crazy in itself because, I can see how some people would think, oh, well, we want to give children all the best new gadgets out there to help them along. But as we were just reading, I was just doing a micro segment with a friend of mine about ChatGPT and all these language model programs. And in the study that was done on people who were using them, especially students who were using them just for, they broke down 3 categories of students. And one of them were just brain only. Another category was, I think, just they were using ChatGPT and some of these chat services for maybe just some I don't know, some fact checking or just some spell check, whatever the hell it was. And then the other one was just purely using, which is, we know it's an epidemic in even higher learning now with colleges now, using these language model programs to just put a term paper together.
That's right.
And what they realized is that the people who are using these tools that in every from every perspective, we can say, compared to what we had 40 years ago, they're pretty miraculous as how they can make computations and all that other stuff. But everybody using these tools could not cite one line that was in their own papers. They retain no knowledge, and they actually moved backwards. It was stunting their progress. So even when I think about what you described as this little reading pen, I was like, no, cool, but you can't do this.
It's not. The only place that I would see like a reading pen or some device like that is if I go to Italy, an adult on a vacation, and I need to order something off the menu. I could use a translator. Okay, right. Groovy. But in reality, if I want the full Italian experience, I'm going to learn Italian. Like that's the human building. That's how we get smarter, and that's how we learn to cook. And I mean, even now, cooking's been destroyed. I'll just scan this and put it in this device, and you don't have to cook anymore. And I'm like, we're taking to me, again, my opinion, we're taking the human out of humanity, and it's destroying us. Like, I have kids in my school that have never had a sunburn because they're in front of a computer all day long. They're playing video games from the time they get up to the time they go to bed. And that's their life. And they brag, oh, we have a TV in the bathroom. We have a TV in the kitchen. We have a TV here. We have a TV there. And I'm like, it makes me sick because they've never built a tree house. They've never fallen off of a bike and then had to get back on or skin their knees or gotten in a scrap with the neighborhood bully or whatever. Like, those are life experiences that children should experience. I'm not saying violence and all of that. But I'm like, you got to grow up.
Yeah.
And in order to grow up, you have to experience, and you can't win every game. And there's not like a pen or a calculator that tells you how to solve things. So we have a very stupid generation that doesn't know they don't know.
Before we get into what I'm very interested in you breaking down not only homeschool, I'm on a homeschool path with my daughter, but micro schools and what you do now. Before we get to that, though, I want to ask, because you brought up your younger brother talking to the school psychologist and all that, and it wasn't too long ago that we were talking about similar topics on this show where teachers, school administrators have really been empowered to feel like they are in a position to make expert diagnoses on children and diagnoses that can impact a child's life forever one way or another, because it's either the parents follow these busybodies lead and drug their kids up into some zombie-like submission, or even if the parents don't comply with the school, a child hearing from teachers and administrators that they still have to contend with being labeled negatively. And
Right.
so before we go on to what you're doing now, how did you manage to keep your son's confidence intact during that whole ordeal?
I didn't, because he thought, like, when he got to the end of first grade, the only thing that the experts, the college educated, the child experts, the psychologists, this, that, and the other, the product they got with my son was he was convinced he was stupid. And his, like, outgoing personality was so subdued. It was as if he was on drugs, but he was shot on the inside. And I'm like, you know what? If I went to a job, I don't care if it was McDonald's. Let's say I go to McDonald's and I'm assigned the fries and I don't make fries well. And my manager is like, wow, you really suck at making fries. You're horrible. You're this, you're that. I'm going to quit. Like, there's only so much pounding a person can take before they say that's it. And my son was 6. Like, a 6-year-old is not made of armor. A 6-year-old needs everybody in their life rooting for them, whether they're special needs or not.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you have, like, let's say a special needs boy on a baseball team and he can't walk very well. Well, that baseball team and the opposing team, they should accommodate him and they let him run the bases and everyone cheers him on and he feels great. Instead of, like, in school, they use checklists and they're unfair. Nobody can pass these checklists. And the checklists are one-sided. So it's like, has bad handwriting. Well, they don't teach handwriting anymore, but sloppy handwriting is an indication of a learning disability. Well, that's not fair. Is only interested in things that they're interested in. I'm like, well, that's human beings. I don't like the Avatar. What are those? The Avenger movies? I think they're ridiculous. I think my 3rd graders could write the script. Sorry, people, but I'm not an Avenger. My sons are like, oh, the Avengers, let's go to the midnight movie. I'm like, I can't even take it. But so I'm not going to go see that because I'm not interested in that. But do we now label me because we all have to fit into the same little box? The other thing is these checklists. You know, what if you have a teacher that doesn't like kids? They're like power tripping, horrible people. And they don't like kids and they took the job so they could be a professional bully. And I'm not saying it's all of them. I think it's minor. I think that goes for any profession or any type of person. You can have a horrible mother. You can have a good mother. You can have a horrible father. You can have a good father, etc. Anyway, the checklist never ask the child for their opinion. They never ask the child to rate the teacher. Does that teacher show patience? Does the child feel welcome? Does the child feel welcome at home? Do his parents or his or her parents behave in a way that when that child was born, everybody's life got better? Or was when the child was born, life fell apart and they're now the reason that the family is suffering?
Is this checklist something that is prevalent is this a state thing or something federal?
Oh, it's everywhere.
Okay.
It's in every school. And I'll tell you, in Miami, you have the teachers at times, they fill out checklists, whether the parents know it or not. And then they'll send a checklist home. In my book, I write good stories, I write bad stories. One bad story was a girl who was, I don't know what the reason was, because the paperwork that I got when she started my school, she was 14. She was taken away from her family. Now that's a big deal to go into foster care. There was nothing in the paperwork as why that happened. However, the checklist that the mother filled out was very negative towards this 7-year-old girl. And the thing that the mother had trouble with was the girl wouldn't sweep and mop the floor. So that proved she had oppositional defiant disorder. And I disagree. I disagree 100%. I think a 7-year-old can help with chores, but I don't know that they can physically maneuver to successfully sweep and mop. And this girl was tiny. She was tiny as 14. So she was placed on, at one point, she was on 3 different medications.
Jeez.
And then she comes to my school. She's 14. She's now altered personality. And she told her mom, I'm not taking one more of these drugs. I don't like how it feels. And so then I dig in on the academics. That's all I can do. I'm not going to go home and tell people how to raise their children. That's not my flag, right? But I can get this student to understand reading, writing, and math and apply it to real life situations so that they can, whatever they want to do, achieve that. Like, I don't want to tell them what to think. I want to tell them how to think and how to break things down and how to maneuver. And that I'm really good at.
Then let's talk about that now, because I am extremely interested to hear about micro schools in particular. There are, I mean, as it is right now, there are millions of new homeschool students around the world. I mean, around the country, especially since 2020. You know, and so everybody's trying to figure it out, especially over, you know, here in places like New York. Try and figure it out, trying to network, trying to find who's around. You know, you can do, you know, what do you do? But when you talk about micro schools, when did you start yours? What is it like? How's it set up? And where else are they popping up?
Okay, well, they're popping up all over. And the word micro school is new. That came from the pandemic, basically. So, and what I did in the beginning was a micro school. I'm a single mom. I wasn't a single mom when I started homeschooling, but that came shortly after. And so my son was going into the 2nd grade with very weak skills. And I had a 4-year-old daughter who was 4 years old, going on like, I'm ready to graduate college. Like, she was super motivated as a student. She liked to have her handwriting straight. She liked to get right answers. Like, she never went through the stupid phase. Like, I'm stupid, I'm worthless. She never went through that. So when I started homeschooling, I only accepted 4-year-olds or kindergartners and 2nd graders. And then I had 2 in diapers. I had a newborn and a toddler. And my toddler, Adam, was 1, but he was old enough to know that kids come every day from like 8:30 to 2. So I got him a desk. Did he ever use it? Hardly ever. But he needed a desk with a name tag. And he had a lunchbox. You know, again, he's in diapers, but he was old enough to know that there's a group activity. So sometimes he would sit in and other times he's playing Legos where I can see him or doing whatever. So the next thing that I'm going to write is all about micro school. I get into it in Enough is Enough. My advice is the parent builds it around their need. So when I started, I took 7-year-olds and 4-year-olds. That was it. And I had other people, hey, I have a 5th grader. I'm like, sorry, I'm not going to do 5th grade. I don't know what I'm doing already. Right? Like, I didn't know what I was doing. And I built it.
How did you build the curriculum with people are, because there's a lot of people don't have an education background that are jumping into this. They want to make sure that they are in compliance with the state. And there's tons of curriculums out there that are now ready made. But, you know, how'd you do this?
All right, so that's a huge endeavor. Okay, so and now we're going to jump into the end of my book. So the curriculum I semi-invented. I used old books. This is how back in the 20s and 30s, kids were taught to read. And I'm an artist. That's really what I was going to do. This is a painting behind me. I was going to paint. That's what I wanted to do. I love having kids. I want to be a mom. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I love it. I wanted 8 children. Didn't work out. I have 4. I was still busy, but I'm like, I like the cooking. I like the getting the kids together. I like that, right? That was like very creative for me. So when it came to setting up a curriculum, I would get old books and I would draw it. myself on paper. And this is before computers or all of this. So what I want to do now, honestly, is I want to turn my school over. My daughter, who's no longer 4, she's 38.
Wow.
She will take the school with some of my other teachers that are not certified, because I don't hire certified teachers. No offense to certified teachers, but I have to unteach them so much, uneducate them to get them to educate, because I'm not doing labels. Like I'm not going down that path. I'm not drugging. I'm not getting on board with that. And unfortunately, with the books that are produced today, the textbook companies are in bed with the ADHD companies. So the textbook companies, like with the confusion of math and phonics hasn't been phonics since the 30s, and grammar has been slaughtered as a skill, right? So we're taking all of these stable points of American education, and they've just been slaughtered. So what I want to do, and one of the reasons I wrote the book, is I want to create that curriculum. I want to go back to this textbook here is from 1883. This is an arithmetic textbook. It's wonderful. Now we have to update it because we can't buy a toy car, a lollipop, and jacks for 2 cents. That doesn't exist anymore. However, this book was put together so that the student would master numbers. And it's recommended that they do textbook with games. Like it wasn't hard, but it was done with mastery. And one of the quotes in, I've collected 500 of these books, by the way, from mid 1800 to early 1900s, when the United States was #1 educationally in the world and no one was close to us. And I'm like, why don't we just go back to what worked? And I'll tell you, the reason we don't go back to what worked is because the pharmaceutical companies are going to lose billions of dollars.
Okay, so then let's stop right here, because I was going to ask, when you said I don't take on certified teachers because I just can't take the labels, I can't take the drugging. Does it really? It just comes all the way back around to that. Like, for example, if you remove the labels and the drugging, if they said I hate this aspect of it as well, do you find that even just basic operational mindset in teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic it's gone. It's gone.
And the problem is you have some wonderful, like I've met wonderful teachers, and what do 3 years in? They quit because they can't teach. Teaching to me is an art. Like my first grade teacher, Mrs. Rudd, she was probably in her mid 60s, and her classroom was her universe. She had the American flag. We sang Christian music. Like nobody cared. But she had her classroom. She had a reading circle. She had mothers that came in. Okay, you're my volunteer on Monday morning. You're my volunteer on Monday afternoon. And it was this like united front of fun learning. My son would have thrived. He would have thrived. And I remember this teacher, and this Mrs. Rudd, we were learning like words like pie, tie, PIE. And we had to write the word and then draw a picture. And again, I'm an artist. So I drew a picture of a pie. You can imagine, I was 6, whatever. And she made such a big deal about it. She was like, Barbara, could you come to the front of the class, please? This pie just makes me hungry. And she sent me across the hall to show the 2nd grade teacher my pie. And the 2nd grade teacher was like, oh, I can almost smell the pumpkin pie. I can't wait for Thanksgiving. I still have that drawing. Because that's how, like, we were built up.
Yeah.
We weren't torn down. And we had like the boy, there was always somebody that ate paste or whatever, but even he had a gift. They're like, oh, a bird got in the classroom. James, we need you, and he was the hero that day. We've shifted to where kids are treated worse than dogs in some cases, or they're just like, learning should be so exciting and so exhilarating, and it's not. It's this drudgery of tests and homework and test and homework and seat work. And I'm going to tell you one statistic from reading, I have 500 of these books from this time period. I haven't done a deep dive, but I did enough of a dive. And on a kindergarten book, they had this equation, this formula. It was called 90% to 10%. And however long the kindergartner was in class, because some were in half day, some were in full day, only 10% of the time was allowed to be in seat work. Only 10%. The teacher was restricted to only having that 5 or 6-year-old sit in a chair for 10% of the day. The rest of the time, they were singing, they were with magnifying glasses, they were cutting and pasting, they were exploring, they were playing, but not just play whatever you want to do, like in a circle, holding hands, the farmer and the dell, whatever it was. But they were learning how to take turns. They were learning manners. A police officer, a firefighter would come in and talk to them. And that was kindergarten.
Yeah,
And I'm like, my son would have loved it.
I was gonna bring your son up again, because we had this discussion. I don't know when the hell it was, probably earlier this year, about what ADHD is. And it was a mix. What we got out of that conversation was really interesting. But one thing that is always overlooked is, like you had just said, at one time we were wiser about this whole thing. But when you take children of a certain age and you put them in a seat and you tell them that they have to sit down for that long, they are fighting against their very nature. And how can you expect somebody not to squirm and wiggle and be completely out of their mind, like claustrophobic, even,
Right. Well, and it creeps into the adult life too. Like parents, oh, my son's hyperactive. I'm like, shut up. That's like me saying my puppy is hyper bitey. That's what a puppy is. Children have more energy than adults do. Period. My parents had 5 children. They didn't get matching furniture until all 5 of us had moved out, because they knew we were crazy. They're going to the grocery store and we're doing full-on Olympics, vaulting over the sofa, footballs in the house. We're doing all of that, rolling back the rugs and putting pledge on our socks and skating. It was amazing, But my parents, they were more worried when the house was quiet. Like, they didn't like a quiet house, but that also was not expected. My dad would get home from work. My mom had dinner on the table. And then after that, my dad would put on jeans and a sweatshirt. And what were we doing? We were playing football in the front yard. And on Friday, we'd play Monopoly or Risk or Parcheesi or whatever. But it was very active. And I was leaping all over the place. I got put in gymnastics. My little brother was in every sport imaginable, because they wanted us, like, activity. It wasn't, please sit still. TV was turned off. Half an hour of cartoons a day. That's it.
You're describing because I thought back to what you just said before about the condition in American classrooms. And I know that we have quite a few educators in this audience. I have many of them that email me about their gripes, their grievances about where things are, how they simply have to learn to survive in their school, just to survive politically or whatever the hell else. So they have to learn new rules of engagement every year. It's essentially like the inmates that run the asylum, no matter where it is. It's nuts. But when you talk about how there's that relationship of teachers and how they are maybe abusing students in some way, whether it's just through monotony or anything else. But I also hear a lot from friends and family of mine who still work at schools to say that the children show up. And I think that what you just described right there with your family routines, there is that family life is also going extinct. I mean,
exactly.
because there are children coming to school. We're talking about full-on confrontations. It's not so
Right.
much that teachers versus these innocent little students. I hear so much about how the behavior of children as they enter the building is absolutely abhorrent too. So that's
Yes.
what makes me think about what's going on at home. It's certainly not Leave It to Beaver.
No, it isn't. It isn't. And Leave It to Beaver's a little like airy fairy anyway. But still, there's, this country, when we lose the family, to me, we lose the country. And I know that this isn't going to be popular, what I'm about to say, but I raised my boys, single mom, raised my boys on, I want you to find an intelligent woman to marry. I'm going to set an example of what a mother should be. And I'm not a mean mom, but I had policy, that's a strong word. Bedrooms had to be cleaned by 4 o'clock on Friday if you wanted somebody to sleep over. And my house was the house where everybody wanted to come. My son, he's like, Mom, can Justin and Daniel sleep over? I'm like, let me look at your room. It's 4 o'clock. I'm like, your room's a mess. It'll take me 10 minutes to clean it up. I'm like, well, you should have done that 20 minutes ago, and then it would be a yes. So no, this week, plan it better. And next week, yes, they can spend the night on Friday. But today they have to go home at 8. So it wasn't like he was like condemned to hell or whatever, but these are the rules. If you invite someone over, it's bad manners to have a messy house. If you invite somebody over to spend the night in your room, you can't have a messy room. It's bad manners. And so I set that up. I raised my daughter on like how she should conduct herself as a woman. I didn't allow the cleavage and the short skirts. Sorry. And she wasn't interested in that anyway. But I set the pace. And on the homeschooling, I set the pace there. I'm like, this is how this is done. We're not going to get lazy on it. Oh, Mom, I'll never use this. I'm like, absolutely. You might not use Algebra 1, but you know what you are going to use is problem solving. And if you can stick it out on an Algebra 1 problem and get to the answer, you've just used your mental capacity, which is your biggest gift. That's your only gift, really. The degree, the diploma, who cares? It's what do you do when everything hit the fan? Can you figure your way out of it? And to me, that's me as a person raising children, because also when they were like 10, 11, and 12, hey, I want new wheels for my skateboard. They're $97. They knew I didn't have that. But they're like, if I do the yard and do this and do that, could you come up with half? That I can. I can come up with a solution. But they're also thinking of a solution. They're not just sitting there, oh, I never get anything. Like that mentality would never work in my household.
Well, let me ask you this. When it comes to, and I want to know about growth. I'd love to know about where you are now. You already said that you'd love to see your daughter take over the school. I'd love to know about all that as we start wrapping up. But we're looking at a lot of transitions in society right now, and I wonder about this because I said before, ever since 2020, millions more children are going to have never known anything other than homeschooling because of what happened in 2020. But what about that transition? How is that transition like when you take a child from what is now considered traditional school, a traditional school schedule, which is to go to the public school, to go to the local charter school, whatever it is, that's considered traditional now for generations of it. What's that transition usually like, going from traditional school into the homeschool or micro school routine?
Well, depending on the adult running it, it can be wonderful. Because here's the thing. Okay, so you and I know, let's just say that we know, parents know that we need our children to be able to read well, write well, have mathematics as the core, right? Reading, writing, and math. But now if we don't take into account what that child wants to do and leave room for them to change their mind, we're going to lose. So for an example, one of my children, my son Adam, was very much into animals, and twice in his life, once he was in Cincinnati visiting grandma and grandpa, and once he was in Miami. Both times before he was 5 years old, birds flew from the sky and landed on his shoulder. Like, that is crazy. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. And he didn't flinch. He's like, "Hey, Jake." And it was a crow this big on his shoulder. So I'm like, this kid is gifted with animals. There's some affinity there that I can't, he didn't get this gene from me. This comes from him. There's something there. So all that he wanted to learn about were animals. So I told all of the family members, give me animal books. Give me simple to read up to 5th grade animal books. Everything. And so by the time, that was what his reading program is. I didn't follow what the state said. I don't care what the state says. State's most likely incorrect, because the state was the one that were saying my son needed to write book reports before he could read. So that's ridiculous. So my son, Adam, by the time he was 10, on his own, had logged over 250 animal books. And he, like, outside playing football with his friends, with a Nerf ball, nothing, just kids playing. One of these egrets, like they look like storks, landed in the yard and its wing was broken. Adam knew exactly what to do. He's like, "Go get me, I need a loose rubber band and I need a bath towel." And the kids went to do it. And then I'm calling some wildlife preserve, and he knew to put something over the bird's head so it wouldn't freak out. He wrapped the wing in a certain way. He held it firmly, and we drove to this wildlife rescue. He knew what to do, and he was 10. And that's what education should do for you. Now, when he was 13, 14, 15, 16, man, he got into history, but he had the foundation and the room to explore his interest. And so explore his interest he did. He wanted animals, he got animals. He wasn't reading about George Washington and Benjamin Franklin when he was 6, 7, and 8, 9. He didn't care. And it doesn't matter when he's that age. When he was older, oh my gosh, his reading capacity expanded into so many things. But to me, that came because he had a love of reading when he was young, and it served him. So when you find out what the child is interested in and you support that, then the education becomes a dream. And my recommendation to educators that aren't happy in the system is to set up a micro school. It's scary. But if you take most states, again, you have to see what your state can do. But in Florida, you can have 6 kids in your house. Last time I checked, 6 or 7 kids in your house without getting a permit. So let's say that I had a 13-year-old. I'm going to find 6 or 7 other 13-year-olds. So I'm doing the same basic curriculum with all of them. And I'm going to charge each of them $1,000, $1,200 a piece, plus materials, plus this, plus that. So I'm not out anything. And then everybody's going to have to bring, I don't know, a roll of paper towels, a set of toilet paper, like the things that we're going to use from my house. And then I'm not out those costs either. And then we have kids that are actually getting educated in what they're interested in while we're still making sure their reading, writing, and math is on par.
Interesting.
To me, that's the way to go. And before we end up, I want to say, okay, so I kind of went off on this and I don't think I finished my own thought. Another reason I wrote this book, one is to let people know what's really happening. It's bad. Like, you can't even call it education anymore. Giving somebody a reading pen and not sticking with them to get them to read is just lazy. That's just lazy. To me, that's a crime against humanity. So what I want to do, I'm 61. Here's the cliche. If I won the lottery today, I'm not going to buy a boat. I'm not going to buy a plane. I would buy a building in Miami for my school, it would still be a micro school because maybe I'd want 100 kids, kindergarten.
You still do all this out of your house?
No, I have a little place in a mall. I have like 45 kids in a shopping center. It's 1,800 square feet.
45. What's the average? So you have everything from a kindergarten to 12, and how many children in each grade?
3 or 4. It depends because like sometimes you end up with the 5th graders. There's 12.
Okay.
But 12 really is my cap. If I have 12 kids, then I'll pull in I'll assign a high schooler who needs to do community service because managing 12 kids is tough. Managing 4 kids is a full-time job. Even if all 4 of my kids were born on the same day, they're all different. They all have different responses. They all have different interests. Okay, so I want to turn the school over. I want to buy a building in Miami. There's no way I can do a bake sale and come up with the money to fund that. The other thing I want to do is create a curriculum around this, around these books. I want to give the parent the definitions of the words, the discussions, the worksheets, everything that you would need for kindergarten to 8th grade. I'll start with math, then I'm going to go into probably phonics and reading and grammar because they've just been, these are wonderful subjects that have just been destroyed.
Phonics was gone by the time your son and myself were out of middle school. I remember that in like 1992. We still had phonics books. They went away by the time we left middle school.
Yes. Yeah. So like I say, I have 500 of these books and they're wonderful. And today, it's like, to me that there's controversy where there shouldn't be any controversy. The books, the reading books from the early 1900s were very pro-American. It was very much people who overcame things, men, women, different races, people who overcame adversity and had a win, right? Or paved the way for a whole population, to thrive. And I think that those people should be known about, and I think they should be celebrated. I don't care what their gender was. I don't care what their race was. And instead of like now to find, over COVID, I had a little girl who was like 7th grade. She's like, hey, there's this book that I want to read with everybody. It's about a ghost in an apartment building. I'm like, okay, we'll do it. It looks fine. It was awful. It had every page had sexual references that didn't belong. This is a middle school book that you just buy at Barnes & Noble. The cover looks terrific. And it looks like it's going to be a little mystery, like the Goonies or something like that. But every page had a sexual reference. And I'm like, we're not doing this book. So I'll go older. Anyway, so that's what I want to do. And I sell enough of my book, enough is enough. Right now I'm doing it through Amazon. So it's not like Amazon keeps most of the money. But again, a cliche, and this is a lot of work and I'm nowhere close to this. I sell 1 million books. That gives me $6 million to play with. Is that enough to reverse American education? No. Is it enough to buy myself a school building? No. But it gives me a start. And it puts me in control of my dream. Some people agree with me, some don't. I don't care. When I started homeschooling, some people agreed with me, some didn't. I don't care. I'm going to save my son. And it turned out well. And it turned out actually very well.
And I hope that the main thing about this is because we try to keep a finger to the pulse of all of it. And it's an incredible story. I hope that you get your school building one day. I know you're driven. I know that's, and I want to keep in touch with you. And there's so much more that we can discuss that we haven't gotten around to. And, we're in an age of constant flux. I hope that I hear about all types of micro schools popping up. I actually, while you were talking, I went to go check to see what is in compliance in New York over here, and there's actually no explicit law about any kind of student limit for a home-based micro school other than
Well, there you go.
complying with health and safety and zoning regulations and all that stuff. But little things like that I never even thought about. But again, it's such like the earth is reforming itself at this point
Right.
when it comes to education. There's a lot of people out there who are curious that don't know. They almost want to send a signal flare up into the sky, say, "Does anybody else interested in doing a little co-op or something like that?"
Right.
It's hard to find people who are even interested. Especially now that my daughter is coming up on kindergarten age. I just want to know that she's going to have some good memories in this respect, because you want to know what it is. You know what it is going forward here. It is like when I was in school. This comes up quite a bit with my friends, especially after my daughter was born. When we were growing up, the homeschool kids were a little strange.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, they were. The homeschool scene back then was more so dominated by families who wanted to cloister children religiously. Right. And now there's this flip where more people want to distance themselves from what has become a real theocracy between the social engineering, the curriculum, the mandated medicine, all that other stuff. My daughter's in gymnastics and she's already in ballet classes, and she just did her first year of T-ball. She loves kids. Kids love being around her, so she's not going to be cloistered or anything like that. But it's different. There's different motivations now for people wanting to sidestep what is now considered traditional schools. But that's the challenge right there. Hey, people want to guarantee that their child has some of the same quality friends and memories that we had, even though those institutions have rotted since.
But that's also going to be up to the adult doing it. Like, for example, like in my little group, when I have 11 kids at my house, for Earth Day, I'm like, okay, we're going to adopt an animal. Who are we adopting? We decided to adopt a whale. And you know how that goes. You send $25. You don't even know what you're sending it to. Cincinnati, the Metro Zoo or whatever. But the kids got a folder and it was a whale and we were all into it. And then they drew pictures of the whale. We wrote letters to the whale. So I worked it in. And these kids were not awkward. They were not distanced. Because I'm like, all right, guys, so we have this group. So we have to take we also have to take some responsibility for Miami. And we started volunteering, and I say that loosely, at Miami Children's Hospital. I called their volunteer area, their center, and I'm like, what do you guys need? They go, oh, we need crayons. And I'm like, okay, we can get you crayons. So I had this little homeschool group. Most of the parents were businessmen, and I hit them all up. I'm like, you're going to give me $50 for crayons. It's not a nonprofit. It's nothing. You're giving me $50, and we're going to go buy crayons at Walmart or Target and get them to give us crayons, and we're going to get the good stuff. We're going to get Crayola. And so we showed up at Miami Children's with 200 boxes of crayons, and the kids had baked muffins. And I told them going in, I'm like, good, we're going to go into a hospital. You are going to see children with no hair. You're going to see children with wires coming out of them. These kids are sick. So how would you, if you were in that situation, how would you want to be greeted? I'd want to be greeted like friendly. I'm like, exactly. And it was interesting because this group of kids, wherever we went, the senior volunteer coordinator would say, where are these kids from? Because they're so respectful and they're so engaging. And I'm like, well, that came from the adult running the thing. We would put on plays and invite the neighbors and charge them $5. In fact, this one boy, this will be my last story, Miguel, who does all my tech for me right now. He was 9 from Ecuador, and he was learning English. And he wanted to grow up to do electronics or computers. So I'm like, okay, Miguel, here's the deal. You keep your assignments on par, your behavior was excellent. And we're going to start a business. You're going to make a flyer. And this was before computers. He had to do it all by hand, and we would make copies of it. And we're going to go to the neighbors, and you're going to say, if they have blow dryers or radios that aren't working, to give them to you. You're going to charge them parts and $5 service fees. And this little boy added, and if I don't fix it, you can't sue me. So, he's like this little boy. And the neighbors were into it. And he was fixing blow dryers and radios. And he had his little station in the homeschooling with all of these wires. And he was doing his thing and he was making a little bit of money. And now he has his own company, like he was homeschooled all the way up. He has his own company that services the technology for South America and Miami. And that's how it should be. Like, he never felt stupid. He never felt it was grindy. He was never weird, because he was the one who had to do the knocking on the door. I'm standing next to him, but he had to be the one that would tell the parent, like, well, this is your business. You got to represent it. I'm afraid. Well, you got to get unafraid.
I love the stories, Barbie. I really do. I love the success stories. It's very inspiring to hear about it tonight, and because I think there's a lot that people relate to, and it also makes me excited for the future, especially since this is not a new undertaking. The fact that you've been doing this, it's almost as if the country is starting to catch up with people like you, who have already have their roots dug deep, and we have had several buckets of cold water to the face over the last half decade alone. And I really do hope that the future of American education is in the hands of people like you. I really do. And I can't wait to have you back, because we've only scratched the surface with stories and any other issues that are going on, headlines, and I think solution-based thinking and conversations are such a breath of fresh air, because there's a lot of doom goblins out there who love to just talk about how bad things are. I think we can, it's like drowning and having somebody describe the water you're drowning in. Just throw me a life raft. Let's get it. Can we talk about some hopeful situations here? We'll get a lot out of this. You don't want to be a
spectator. You can't be, I'm done with spectators.
Right. Well, that's it. Well, listen, the website, everybody, is BarbieRivera.com. It is linked in the description of this episode. The book is Enough is Enough, exposing the education system after their failed attempt to label and drug my son. It's everything that we talked about tonight and more. I can't wait to have you back. Is there anything else you want to tell people before you leave, Barbie?
No, thank you for having me. And I'm going to mail you a book tomorrow.
I can't wait to read it. I really can't. I'll show it off over here, and I'll be in touch with you afterwards too, because we have events that we're going to be doing soon and everything else, and perhaps we can include copies of your book and different types of giveaways and fun things that we can do on air. So we'll talk.
Oh, you know what? It's coming out in Spanish.
Oh, all right. Well,
I had a Cuban actor who read it, loved it. He's like, I want to translate it. I'm like, send me an invoice. It's done. It's now being formatted. So we're looking at a Miami launch, probably the end of September, early October.
A lot of Cubans in Miami.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Well, Barbie, this was a wonderful evening. Thanks for coming around. All right.
Okay.
Take care. Barbie Rivera, everybody. That was wonderful. I really had a great time, and I hope you did too. It's 8:15. We'll take a really quick break. When we come back, going to take calls and read your super chats. Then we'll jump into other news, but there's more than enough to comment on. I really hope it's enough to spark a conversation on this little talk show of mine. I hope somebody out there would want to talk to me. Anyway, we'll roll the dice on that right after this.
All right, you alien assholes. In the words of my generation, up yours!
Hey, everybody. Okay, so a very quick break. It's not very long at all. The intermission is something else I have to figure out what to do with. We have to keep welcome to intermission. And, at least one of those in there. We got to figure out. Maybe I'll actually record it. It'll be my voice, and it could be in that same kind of everything the same, but just not quite the same thing. We've got to find a way to go royalty free. We've got to find a way. I hate to say it. The platforms, maybe one day they will wisen up and they will find a way to allow people like me to act as radio stations and put in for licensing and work that out on an individual basis. It's really stupid. I mean, you think about how much something like Rumble, even though we don't have any problems with Rumble in this respect, none whatsoever. But you think about YouTube Premium, YouTube Red, YouTube TV. There's all of these extra things that you could add on to YouTube or I don't know where else. I mean, obviously there's Spotify, there's all types of Apple and Google products. And you would think that there would be extra $10 a month for playing certain types of music or having I don't know. You think that they'd be leaving a lot of money on the table. People already pay Rumble. I pay $100 a month at Rumble to stream there for the Rumble Premium. That's allowed me to stream and to also not get bothered by all these ads that people keep telling me are all over the place on Rumble. I don't know. For those of you who are using Rumble Basic or whatever the hell it is, I didn't know that you see that many ads. I promise you, I don't. I've never seen one. It's certainly not something I put up. So, yeah. Nobody's really trying to figure out that problem. Then again, not a lot of people are trying to do a show like I'm doing. So I guess maybe I got to tailor myself a little bit just until the tides turn. All right. Well, let's see here. 70 Strangham. What does that say? 70 Stang HM? Says, just for the reminder that 100% of your super chats go to Frank if you use quitefranklysuperchat.com. Mad love and respect from San Antonio. Well, thank you, 70. Thank you for reminding everyone. That's really nice of you. Jay Brits, did I see this? Frank, out to dinner tonight. We'll catch you on the replay. This old boomer hit retirement age today, but probably a few years away from retiring. Have a great show tonight. Break a leg. That's from last night, but I didn't see it until now, so it must have came right at the end there. I appreciate you, Jay Brits. Let me see what's going on in Rumble. We have a nice group of people out there hanging out. And Waltzy V is there saying if everything was standardized, we'd have an NPC world, which it seems that's where we are. Okay, if you want to call in about standardized tests here too, because a lot of you were going to school when these standardized tests started getting introduced. But, at first, I remember we over here in the New York area, we had the New York State Regents exams. And I don't know if they're still out there. I don't know if they're nearly the same, because I know that the SATs have changed so dramatically. And in at least a number of cases now, SAT scores don't mean anything for college acceptances. And then of course college. Look who they're admitting into Harvard. Look who gets into Harvard these days. So it's all nuts, because you think about how everybody's complaint about standardized testing is, again, it comes down to one size fits all, never fits well. Are you trying to unlock latent, innate abilities inside of individual people to not only make their lives better, but also to improve the lot of all of us in whatever state or community or country we live in? Wouldn't you want to live around industrious, ambitious, inspired people? Instead of all of these square pegs being forced into the round hole. And so the standardized test thing was when that started becoming a linchpin in a lot of American education all over the place. People protested against it. But against, there's protesting, there's pushback, there's whatever. Some people pull it back a little bit, they moderate, and it just still sticks around. It's the Crisis and Leviathan thing all over again. You introduce something, Maybe most of it goes away, but not all of it, and that's the new normal. And then you get a little bit more. And maybe at first the standardized tests were one of those things where, hey, we're having a problem with it because things like education should not be standardized for people who have different interests, different strong suits, and different paths they should be on in life. This is why that conversation we had with Larry Sharp on the air last year was, again, to go through all of his ideas about how a state could break itself free from the bounds of the federal government and all of that federal money that is already ill-gotten in the first place and destroys a state's autonomy, especially in a 10th Amendment respect. But all the ideas he had in unlocking the choices and the pathways that American children can go down educationally, even when it comes to shortening high school by 2 years, where after sophomore year in high school, you can make choices about, okay, you still have this much money, state money, generated from the state, not the federal government, state money that you have to work with. Where do you want to go? And how can you apply it, either to a trade or if you want to go on to college because there's something in particular you want to get into, and you can go there a couple of years early. Either way, what was he trying to do? He was trying to give people more choices, trying to allow them to customize things, to use money that is generated in-state instead of being beholden to some large political behemoth thousands of miles away. And it also gets children into the real world faster, where you don't have 22, 23, 24-year-old people who are just now being set free after, 2 decades plus of intensive schooling and standardized testing. Of course, especially once you get to high school, everybody's got jobs. You have some sort of you got to feed yourself when you're in college, but it's not the same as, wow, school's done. And now it's just me and my life. It's an incredible, all these conversations are really incredible and interesting. And I'm sure that somebody out there is muttering something to themselves. Call in and mutter it to me. And also go back and listen to that episode with Larry Sharp. In fact, listen to Larry Sharp's episode and this episode with Barbie Rivera back to back, because I'm sure that it will yield a lot. But what do you think about standardized testing? Because whereas it might have been really overbearing and a big barrier to entry, or a barrier that stood in the way of really talented kids that are not good test takers from going on and having experiences somewhere else, you could say, well, you know what, wherever they were barred from, it pushed them into another direction. And hopefully you don't know. You don't know what you missed out on. But I don't know how that is right now. Is anybody out there right now in 2025 or any time in the last couple of years been able to look at standardized tests? What are they like now? Because it used to be that they were too hard. I remember everybody in high school, when I was in junior year, everybody in my junior year physics class failed the Regents. Everybody did. Everybody failed the Regents. And we weren't cheating either. Nobody knew what the fuck they were looking at. And I think it actually made news or something. They had to we all had to retake it, and it was something across the entire state that it was just incredibly hard or something like that. And I don't know where they are now, because standards have been rolled back everywhere. In the state of New York, look at the standards they have just for people to be teachers. Teachers don't even have to be literate in New York. So I don't know how standardized testing could have gotten any more stringent, even though at their hardest they really weren't a good indicator of the talents of any one child. Jim Zell from Maine, what do you think? Aren't you close to the school system out there in Maine?
Yes, I am. I work for a school system.
Okay, well, what are your thoughts?
First of all, just coming in and catching probably midway with your interview with Barbie, that was such a wonderful conversation. I mean, I really enjoyed it. And just the point you said at the end about, you know what, just, all the crazy news that's happening, just the negativity and It's overwhelming, right? But to hear that, some hope, just on the local level of just somebody just taking action and doing something, it was just really positive. But yeah, and you know what? Because I've homeschooled my kids for since about 2007. She brought up so many good points. The school system, in the way they handle the children, and I'll be honest with you, it's so politicized, and it's really, you want to call it, it's really indoctrinating. Is what's happening. It's not educating. It's indoctrinating. Is what you're seeing from kindergarten all the way up. Now, I live in a pretty rural area, so we may have been insulated for a time, but you can even see it up here now. The rainbows are starting to come into the school districts. And so it's like, it's very discouraging. But like I said, the homeschooling and how she's doing it, it is so freeing, to be able to let your child learn at their pace and pursue interests. It's a wonderful time, and reading based is so important. Like we did with all our kids very early on, teaching them phonics, and reading, heavy reading focus with all of our programs that we did. I thought that was crucial.
Yeah, it seems to be. And that's
yeah,
so you said you were pretty insulated up there, but even now it trickles down to local school districts and all that.
Oh yeah, it's coming in. I haven't seen curriculum per se. I'm always trying to keep my eye out for that, but you can just see the colors and the rainbows, and but subjectivism and your truth. I have my truth. You have your. That's all over now up here. Like, what are those posts? Why are you having kids write what their truth is? My truth is this. In second grade, you're not even teaching objective what is truth anymore, because the kids think, well, my truth is truth, and you have your truth. There's no objective reality.
Yep.
Is what and they're starting at such a young age, and you're seeing it now, and it's like, holy smokes! I would just encourage anybody, if you can, to homeschool. My youngest, who she just turned 15. My other two daughters, well, my one's married and the other one's out of the house, and they're living their lives. It's just like, it's not just about book learning. And don't get me wrong, I think you should be reading at the earliest of ages, and getting your basic, your arithmetic, your reading, logic, all that. But nothing beats real world experience. Getting out and to be able to do things. You don't have to be in a school setting. Like when I was home one day, and a friend called me up and said, "Hey, you guys want to go? Help me skin a moose." I never did it before. I looked at my daughter. She's like, "Heck yeah, let's do it." Put down what we're doing, and she went up there, and she has an interest in that, and she was able to. This guy was able to break down to her, how you do it, how you're able to skin this animal, and how you're able, and holding a moose's heart in her hands, and she was like in awe at the size of it. And she's like a crisis kid. She when she sees a crisis, she likes to jump into action. Mm-hmm. My youngest. So now, during she's going out on runs with ambulance crews up here. When she's been doing that since she's been 14.
Wow, how old is she now?
Yeah, she just turned 15 in July. Wow,
that's one hell. Is it an internship or a community service?
It's intern. It's like, if you could, there's programs up here, they're called ride-alongs, and your kid, you have to sign waivers. And, they're saying, hey, they may go out on, obviously they're not going to take her to, some type of shooting event. Right. But other than that, she's going to all different types of calls, and they're explaining to it. And as they're going, what they're doing. And she has a huge interest in that. But you know what? If she was in a brick and mortar school, sitting down in a classroom behind a desk, having a teacher teach about manners, whatever they're doing. They're not even doing full-blown educational pieces anymore.
Yeah,
She wouldn't be able to.
I know.
She wouldn't be able to experience that. And I'm telling you, Frank, when I say when teaching manners, third grade, 3 months into the school, 3 months into the school year, not doing any education, teaching manners for 3 months. That's a problem.
Right? It's a problem. It's a problem, Jim. At the same time, though, what I realized, because I was starting to look through all of New York's standards, and I was like, oh shit. Once we have to start, because I think you have to declare whether or not you are going to homeschool in New York by the time your child is 6. So kindergarten is not even really something that is necessary for a child to enter into here in New York. So we essentially have until next September to officially, let the state know we're educating our child at home. And I started looking at, the reporting standards, what do you have to start doing? And I realized that, man, by the time Aurora's 6, she's going to be doing things that children 8 years old are doing. It. Everything is so stunted, and and like you said, how much learning can you possibly do when so much of the year is learning how to be some sort of a new good citizen by people who are redefining what it is to be a citizen of the world. It's the Earth Days. It's the political genuflection months. There's the different made up flags, and like you said, spending all this time on existentialism, essentially, you're giving kids in kindergarten and first grade philosophical baggage of the French philosophical baggage about existentialism and subjective reality and all that shit, talking about what your truth is. You're saddling kids with that. I mean, they believe that. Oh my! You asked me what my truth was in 1991. I would tell you that I was Raphael, the Ninja Turtle. And
there you go.
It would be fantastic.
These kids are first and second grade, man. And they're getting these little quote unquote assignments, and they have to write that stuff. They're in first, second grade. What do they know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're saddling them with that. Look, man, it's like homeschooling your kids. Can it be challenging? Yeah, it could be challenging at times, especially if, depending on your situation. My wife and I, we've always committed one of us would be home doing it with our kids. That's it. That was the commitment we made. And there was 1 year I was doing it. I was working third shift. I was working until 11 at night. I slept, got up at 6, and then I homeschooled my kid till I had to go to work. That's how we did. And it didn't even take that long, really, maybe 4 hours, but it was all reading. And those were joyful times, man. We would make our own curriculum, and you bring in, obviously books that were for their age level. But then as you got a little older, you're bringing in all the classics, and you're sitting down and you're reading, and we're taking turn. I read a chapter, she read a chapter, and then you talk about the text, and then you ask questions about it, comprehension. What do you remember? What happened here and there, and can you relate back? What she was thinking about. What's the main theme of the plot? And just having those dialogues. My daughter loved that. She loved reading with me, and we had such a good time. That was like the highlight of my day. It was reading books, and we'd read 5-6 books, not the whole book, but like chapters of them from each book in a day. And she had a love for history too. She was reading stuff about World War II. She was always she still is fascinated with it. She has a couple of books on World War II she still likes to read up on. Then we would read, as she's gotten a little older, we're talking about, history and what is real history. What does it look like? Is it just what's taught in the public school system? But when you read more broader subjects and you read more broadly about world history, you get to see a little deeper truth, talking about how, just foreign policy and, but, at a younger level, talking about it, interventionism, how that affects what your country's doing when you're doing that. talk just like World War II, for example, how the Treaty of Versailles greatly influenced, and created that vacuum in Germany because it was such a harsh treaty that brought in freaking Hitler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like people forget about that. They don't even teach that.
No, World War One is a complete. Yeah, it's a complete foggy 3 years that not very many people are prepared to even talk about. Even
World War One, and then that led directly into World War II. I mean, it's like it's fascinating, and but you get to enjoy all this stuff when you get to build your own curriculum, and it's not really hard, Frank.
Well,
and you can, and we do Bible based. I'm a Bible believing Christian, and I love starting off the morning with prayer and looking at the Word, but you know what? You can't do that in the public school system. I can tell you that.
No, you can't. You can barely do it in the private school system. So it's crazy, man. I'll tell you. You think about all little things. You think about what happened to the YMCA. Oh my gosh! What you wonder why they call themselves just the Y now? It's just
the Young Men Christian Association.
Oh, forget it. Forget about it. Forget it. First of all, it's all. I can't even tell you who it's run by. But it's not Christians and usually not men. But we're it's nuts. Anyway, Jim, thanks for the call. This is great.
Hey, you know what? Have her back on. I'm going to go to her website and check out her stuff, and maybe even just get that book, because that was really a great interview.
Oh, she'll be back. That was too good of a conversation, and there's so much more we can do. And I'd love to just hear her, talk about 30 years worth of war stories and success stories. That's the best part. And thanks again, Jim. I love that part. I love that story about just taking the kids to the children's hospital. I love that story. It's so good. That's a massive lesson. That's a massive lesson in, you want to talk about just being grateful, being humble, being accommodating, and also, just how to treat people. Because I'll tell you one thing, the last thing that people who are sick want to be treated like is different from anybody else. It's why a lot of people hide their illnesses, because they don't want to be either distanced, feel distance, and they also don't want to be smothered. And that was just a wonderful story. Really is. If over on Rumble, Garden Guy says, I hated school. So in turn, my grades were horrible. I worked hard at every job I had. People didn't like me from my work, People didn't like me for my work ethic. Ended up retiring from an international corporation. Well, yeah. Well, especially in higher education, I was all about making friends. So my first 2 years of high school, I was essentially just in detention constantly. I wasn't doing anything. I don't know. I wasn't doing anything too crazy, but it was funny. Just trying to be funny. And I spent a lot of time in detention. And then from junior year on, I didn't have one detention. I didn't change my act. It's just that at that time I had the teachers eating out of my hand. It's a little bit harder to get that kind of I don't know. It's hard to establish yourself in college with the teachers, because you're always in so many different classes, and sometimes you only get a teacher once, maybe twice. So college, I never had any disciplinary issues. Actually, the first 2 years of college, because of my socializing, it was mostly just showing up in grades. I think at Christmas break for sophomore year, I had a 1.9 GPA. I was under 2. And I'm pretty sure I was well over 3 by the time I graduated. Everything was totally fine. Everything was fine. I didn't waste anybody's money per se. And a lot of other things have I made good friends in college that I had for the rest of my life. And I started a radio. I realized I wanted to I want to keep some kind of radio in my life. That's where we started with the radio. So good. You find wherever the hell you are, find something to do. Good thing about that is that something like radio, well, can't start a radio station. I can get one of those 1 mile that's FCC compliant. There's like these 1 mile radius hoppers that you can get that I can like maybe put on the top of the building over here. And I had an idea once that maybe if I can get people in the audience to accept these hoppers from me, and if I can somehow, this was so many years ago, it's a stupid idea. There's these little FCC compliant antennas that you can broadcast, and a lot. You know who takes these devices a lot? It's local church groups who are going to broadcast their services to local congregants who can't make it in. They're home, they're sick, they're whatever the hell's going on. They can't make it in. Sometimes schools, like high schools, anything that will be able to broadcast nice onto campus or whatever like that, and just be able to have some kind of a radio program. I thought, well, what if I can sponsor? I can get all of these little things, and I can make sure that a listener a couple towns over, a listener, and just start kind of hopping. If everybody can just hop the signal, could we get national coverage? It was the stupidest thing. But I was trying to figure out how to get on air, like on radio back then, because there's no way, who the hell's going to hire me? Thankfully, the internet provided guys like me with a power supply for a few ideas. Anyway, two-way plays as awesome guest and show tonight. Quite frankly, very inspirational. That's from quitefranklysuperchat.com. I appreciate it. I really do. I had a great time the last 2 nights. Tomorrow night should be interesting. I still believe we have Jay Dyer and Timothy Gordon coming on. Joe Martinez, thank you for the super chats. John Volt says, Frank, nothing interesting to offer. Super chats are weak tonight. It's okay. It's okay. It'll make the strong nights just feel that much better. But I appreciate you so much because we can take all of the, and that's very generous of you. Need all the help we can get. Little operation like us, there are people out there who could fart on the front page of Rumble and make $10,000 for the hour, just because the crowds attract the crowd. That's really what it comes down to. So don't worry. We're gonna have to start our own snowball momentum, and things are going well. We're actually growing very nicely on Instagram right now. Waiting to see the needle starting to move on YouTube, but I'm hoping that by the end of the summer we start seeing some new faces trickling in a little bit more. All right, Rev over on pilled.net says, minor addendum to last night. Stowstube deserves the real credit for my first dad birthday super chat. I was having tech difficulties, and he bought it for me. An act that to this day I can't express how grateful I am. He didn't even know me, so thank you, Stowstube. You'll be there. I hope you'll be there in September. He will. So that means Rev and Stowstube will be able to shake each other's hands. Sean Joe, thank you. And the Sentinel says, Miss Rivera has a great message, positive attitude, and wonderful vision. I plan on buying her book. I hope a lot of people do. And I hope that it results not only in more enlightened people and inspired people, but I hope that micro schools pop up. I wish that there was a micro school in my town. And I wish it was run by like a good friend of mine who I know inside and out. But on to some other stuff. We'll take some calls because it's 8:45 and I have a whole second topic that we're not going to be able to get around to now, unless I rush. So let's do just a little bit of rushing. First thing, I gotta say that this is hilarious. This thing right here, what I read with the Colbert, the Colbert thing that continues on. Listen to this for this headline. Stephen Colbert to Trump. For the next 10 months, the gloves are off. The late night show tore into the president and CBS during the opening monologue of Monday's episode. Because, of course, he's on until like next year. 10 more months, and then it all goes away. So he's going to waste all the money he can for the next 10 months. The gloves are off. CBS, our network, put out a statement. They clarified the cancellation was purely a financial decision. But how could it be purely financial decision if The Late Show is number one in ratings? Do you understand what they're saying? Yeah, it's confusing. A lot of folks are asking that question, mainly my staff's parents and spouses. Yes, it's the staff's parents that's the issue. The staff's parents and all the staff members above the age of 50. That's the issue. You have the number one rating among shows that do that on cable provided services. But only 9% are between young demographics that is going to be the lifeblood of the future of the show. And you're already hemorrhaging. You say, oh, we're number one. Okay. Explain away the $50 million. Even CBS couldn't do that. I'm sure they were willing to float you. But anyway, the gloves the gloves are off now. So I guess he was just playing softball before everybody. Now the big guns are going to come out. What is he going to do? Literally take a shit on his desk every night? I guess that's where we're coming up to. We're actually going to be living out the little Donnie memes. That's what it's going to be. Every night, he's going to take his pants down, pop a squat on his desk, and pinch a loaf. And then he's going to look at the camera and go, you like that, Donnie? You sicko? That's what he's going to do. What he's going to do. I can't wait to see some of the clips that will be shared on Twitter of him taking the gloves off. Of course, I'm not going to be watching, but still. And then I had to go, when I saw this, I had to go and find one of my favorite Little Donnie memes. For those of you who don't know, those are the Ron Perlman memes. People who, when he was trying to, when Ron Perlman was pretending he was any number of his tough guy characters on the big screen, trying to pick a fight with Donald Trump, he'd call him Little Donnie, and hey, Little Donnie. Anyway, it turned into the Little Donnie meme. Here's one of my favorite ones. All the memes end up with Ron Perlman beclowning or defiling himself, but thinking that he was owning the president instead, which is why it's funny because they get so extreme sometimes. This is this is one of the more YouTube acceptably extreme ones I would do for you guys. Plug your ears, little ones. 3, 2, 1. Ron Perlman, Pearl Mutations. Hey, little Donnie, I just shat into my water heater. And now when I turn my fucking sink on, diarrhea comes out. I wash my face with my own shit. What do you think of that, little Donnie? I love the ones where he goes, you must feel real stupid right now, don't you, little Donnie? There's some bad ones, and I love them all. They get real sick. So I hope that Stephen Colbert gets into little Donnie meme territory here, because what the hell could the gloves really have done? Okay, here's the other thing I wanted to talk about today. We got a little bit from Tulsi Gabbard and revelations of Russia and the Obama administration really just dictating the entire thing, as we have known in the past. But of course, now we are getting a little bit more of the receipts. Everybody's just wondering, this is great. This is wonderful, but it's not 2016, no 2017 anymore. I am a jaded individual. I have not given up hope in my life. I have not given up hope in other wonderful, godly things on this earth, but I just don't have too much faith in what you are going to deliver. So show me the goods and then show me an indictment. Still, we don't know what's going to come of this, but the goods are definitely there. It's a lot more than smoke. It's a hell of a lot of fire. Take a listen to Tulsi Gabbard today.
Any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence
For even President Obama, criminal behavior
that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Now, that's just one phase of it. Of course, there's the Glenn Simpson phase, Fusion GPS, Hillary Clinton. But you know, President Obama, you remember when we were looking at all those, the money, the millions that Hillary spent on that, there was Obama political action campaign committee money that went toward that as well. And of course, he's the big chief at that point as the outgoing administration. So, yeah, there's a lot there. Even coming on down to Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden was the one who I remember on the record suggesting using the Logan Act to go after Michael Flynn during that transition period in December of 2016 when he was talking to Kislyak or whoever the hell it was down in Florida. I mean, there's so many people that contributed to this, but the fact that we're talking about Barack Obama is pretty interesting now. Here's another one from you. They're even talking about Hillary Clinton and her health. Everybody was saying, stop it. She's not sick. She's not ill. She's not this. She's not that. Well, here is a little bit about the evidence that Russia actually had quite a bit on Hillary Clinton hanging over her head.
The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
Oh, you mean that? Oh, she was falling down flights of steps like every day. Also couldn't stop coughing. You remember the green glob? You remember when the green glob of alien shit? It was like alien shit. There was a green glob of alien shit that came out of her throat and fell into the cup of water she was drinking from. Can't tell me that was some kind of a lozenge. It was like an alien egg. It was a seed of alien life.
Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump.
Yeah. Well, again, people start saying, dehydrated my ass. This bitch was tranquilized. And there she is on September 11th, 2016, head bobbing like a cork. And then they throw her in the back like a big slab of cod, like she's the catch of the day. Welcome to the Hillary Clinton fish market. It's just, we were on, what exciting times. September 11th, 2016. There at Watch Your Head, bobbing like a cork in the sea. Here she goes, biggily bob. And then, who wants some? We got 5 pounds of Hillary here. Woo-hoo! It's going to be 10 years. It's going to be 10 years. Next September. That scene is 10 years old next September. And they all said, oh, she had the flu. She had the flu. And then the next day, like on September 12th or September 13th, they did that staged interaction of her outside of some hotel that she was staying at in New York City, where a little girl runs up to her for a hug. And, oh, hug. And she runs away. And it got like, wait a second. Didn't she just have the flu? She only just passed out from the flu 48 hours ago. Why are you hugging that child? It wasn't the flu. It was dilaudid or something like that. But this is from Tulsi Gabbard. They put out a really nice series of events, how it all worked out. The creation of the Russia hoax. Donald Trump wins the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign. Well, it's going to start there. We know that Operation Crossfire Hurricane and all that other stuff goes back to 2015. At least that. I remember mapping all this out with Tracy every day. I used to know all the people, all the times, everything. Admiral Rogers, oh man. You remember that, guys? How many of you out there from the good old days? The good bad old days. The good old bad days. New evidence has emerged of the most egregious weaponization and politicization of the intelligence of American history. Per President Donald Trump's directive, I have declassified the House Intel Oversight Majority Staff Report that exposes how the Obama administration manufactured the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. How they do that? On December 8th, POTUS briefing was pulled. IC pulls product that would contradict Russian hoax narrative. They start wiping out all of the exculpatory evidence here. There's a secret Russian meeting of Obama officials. Obama orders. The IC is tasked with new assessment to claim the election was hacked. The CIA warning to Brennan, we don't have direct information that Putin wanted Trump elected. They were telling John Brennan that. Politicized intelligence. Brennan ignored and suppressed intelligence that undermined the narrative. The IC official, the intelligence community official, the Steele dossier was a factor in the Obama ICA. The ICA was a, quote, subject to unusual directive from the president, they said. Intelligence officials disregarded behavior that undermined the idea that Putin wanted to help Trump. And then from there, you got the deep state leaks to the Washington Post. Headline, secret CIA assessment says Russia was trying to help Trump within the White House. NBC News, U.S. officials, Putin officially involved in the U.S. election hack that never happened. The New York Times, Russian hackers acted to aid Trump in election, the U.S. says. Remember, there was also Wall Street Journal. That's where we had Andy McCabe. He was a big part of that as well. It was around that time. It was January 2017 is when they pulled everybody in for an assessment, letting everybody know about the dossier, salacious, unverified, but Donald Trump incoming and Obama outgoing were both briefed on it, so that in itself was newsworthy. And that is what Clapper went to Tapper at CNN with, and that's when CNN broke it. I still remember a lot of the way that this all worked out. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. And to see the receipts here, again, most of the, let's see here, senior CIA officers said some of the information in these reports had been judged to have not met various longstanding IC standards, and they were telling Brennan not to talk about it, not to do this. The three reports were published after the election on the DCIA orders, despite veteran CIA officer judgments that they contained substandard information that was unclear or uncertain origin. And then, as some people have pointed out today, we actually, there's at least perjury. I don't know what meets your standard of treason. Sedition is definitely something I think is on the table here. I don't know what people like Jonathan Turley would say about it, but perjury. I mean, this one, I remember this, and somebody put it out here too. John Brennan, Mr. Granite Face himself with a tiny little pipsqueak voice, he is being interrogated by Trey Gowdy, another waste of time. But here he is perjuring himself. Here he is.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Did the CIA rely on the dossier?
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done.
It was not in any way used for the intelligence community assessment that was done. I mean, he went to incredible lengths to perjure himself. God, I would love to see him in jail. I hate this man's face, and he's shown so much sour will, ill will toward all of us. Incredible. It's just incredible. So the real question is, do you think that Barack Obama really has anything to worry about? The receipts are out there. What's it going to be? Is it possible? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not in charge. I'm not in charge. If I were in charge, there'd be a lot of problems right now for a lot of people, including myself. There'd be a lot of problems, including myself. Oh, my God. Whoopi Goldberg jumps in to defend Obama after the latest allegations, talking about, listen to this.
Just accused a former president of treason. Now, do people realize how serious an allegation this is? And for me, didn't the Supreme Court, under the guidance of this president, say that presidents have immunity? So that would mean that nothing Obama did, because you didn't say no, that only you have immunity. You said presidents.
What does she fucking think immunity is? What did I mean? She's like loosely referencing recent events. There was some issues about immunity somewhere, the executive privilege, this and that. I know that they want to make sure that everybody is laid bare and naked on the table in front of them so they can destroy their lives. But the whole thing about immunity is just so incredible. This is just as Sonny Hostin, I saw that clip floating around too, finished making some weird statement that implied that Stephen Colbert losing his show could lead to the end of the Constitution itself. They're all fucking retards. They're retards.
He was a retard.
Hey, she was a hooah.
He was a retard.
I hate them.
I'll just talk to you in these little sound bites for the rest of the night. Anyway, Whoopi here is demonstrating how little they really know about executive privilege and immunity and all that, which is a demonstration, of course, that fell on deaf ears because everybody in that audience who watches it unironically is dumber than she is. But they tried to put Trump on trial for accounting errors, and they raided his home to look for papers he legally was allowed to keep. Meanwhile, at the same time, these people talking about immunity gave immunity to a former vice president who, even as vice president, did not have the authority to have the files that he was keeping behind the wiffle ball bats in his garage. And now retarded Whoopi has found a way to argue that presidents are, I guess, immune to everything, including seditious action, murder. It's like they just take things to the most extreme end because there is no real learning moment here. They are cackling hags, most of them, especially on this show. So there's that. Which, by the way, everyone, this is another reason why it was so important for them to establish any kind of precedent with the sedition or the inciting of uprising stuff in January 6th, that whole Broadway show that went on out there. January 6th was also an insurance policy in so many ways, seen and unseen, especially for anyone who was involved in real sedition and treason in the years prior. You see, January 6th is an overt spectacle, but the covert stuff that was happening that people were going along with and they were cheering on, especially because all of their favorite yappy people in the media were telling them stories that they wanted to hear about the walls closing in on Donald Trump. That's really the psyop here. Everything is an op. Everything is an op. And obviously this is not contained to Barack Obama in any way, but try to explain that to Whoopi. Try to explain. But yeah, here's the last thing I'll say before I leave, because I wanted to put this out there. Because you're going to hear a lot of wailing about, oh, well, I thought lawfare was bad. Oh, but now Trump's suddenly doing it? Well, there's a difference between going after criminals and making up things to be able to open up investigations into innocent parties. All right? There's a difference between the two. I saw other news outlets complaining about how Tulsi Gabbard and the Trump administration are actively rewriting the Russia story, which is, again, hilarious because, and it's also very frustrating because we're dealing with religious belief at this point. But the Ann Applebaums of the world, who spent a lot of time and were paid very well to write about Russia phantasms ad nauseum until the country was firmly divided in belief on the issue to a religious level. That's what they did. The Ann Applebaums of the world, they were never going to convince the entire country that Putin was working with Trump to undermine the election of 2016 and took the presidency. They were never going to get everybody. But what they needed to do as an act of self-preservation alone was get their most loyal stooges out there to believe that bullshit and keep everybody polarized. That was it. And now, because they were almost completely unopposed, I should say, going back then, they were almost completely unopposed in their ability to craft narrative in the media and were part of a disinformation feeder system that connected directly to the intelligence services that we were just mapped out right there again with the CIA to the Washington Post and everything else. They were not only able to set stories and censor dissent, but they gave each other Pulitzer Prizes. They gave each other Pulitzer Prizes for what they knew was bullshit. What they knew was sabotage, was aiding and abetting spycraft and espionage. They knew this. They gave entire new... Look, I grabbed this because you got to remember. 2018. I said, I know that somebody got a Pulitzer Prize for it. I forgot how ridiculous it was. 2018. Pulitzer Prize for national reporting was awarded jointly to the entire staffs of the New York Times and the Washington Post for their coverage of the Russia interference of the 2016 U.S. presidential election and its connections to the Trump campaign, the president-elect's transition team, and his administration. The Pulitzer citation praised their deeply sourced, relentlessly reported coverage in the public interest that significantly advanced the nation's understanding of the issue. No individual reporters were named in the Pulitzer announcement. No individual reporters. They just said, thank you, entire writing staff of the New York Times and the Washington Post for telling this fucking fantasy story over and over again. And to see people crying, they're rewriting the history that we made up out of thin air. Oh, God. It's the psyops are just so fucking, it's everything. Everything's a part of it. This is why people check out for long periods of time. Long periods of time. Because then you come back and you get thrown a bone and a little bit of validation, but then you have to rehash the whole thing over again. You realize that you're surrounded by retards and, that's where we're at. So maybe at some point tomorrow we can take calls on what do you think is going to happen to Obama. And in the meantime, please leave comments in the comment section. Subscribe to wherever you watch at 7 o'clock. Share the show with people. Become a sponsor. QuiteFrankly.tv/sponsor. The links are in the description below. But on the sponsor page, wherever you sign up, you're getting wonderful, wonderful extra content every month, every week. It is hundreds of dollars of value for as little as $5 a month. And also, as a sponsor, you're going to be getting members-only streaming access to a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that I will be doing at the September Jamboree, which we still have some tickets left, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful weekend. So come join us. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Wrong.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite frankly.
Goodbye.
All right, that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Will you shut up? No.